The opinions and statements made by the guests of the Success in Practice podcast are their own, and I do not endorse or accept responsibility for their positions. Any information given by myself or the guests is educational in intention and not to be taken as medical advice. If you choose to act on the content involved in the podcast, you do so at your own risk. Welcome everyone to the Success in Practice podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Wael Mahmoud. Wael is an osteopath, an acupuncturist, an educator and an author. He's been a qualified osteopath since 1985 after completing his osteopathic studies at the British School of Osteopathy. He immigrated with his wife to Australia in 1987 to take up a position as head of clinical studies at RMIT University in their osteopathy program. During this period, he practiced with other osteopaths and owned his own clinic. He finally sold his clinic in 2013 and went all in on providing CPD health courses mainly around dry needling. Wael was the president of what was then known as the Australian Osteopathic Association between 1990 and 1992, now commonly known as Osteopathy Australia. Wael was born in Egypt in 1963 and moved to the UK in 1970. He's married with children and lives in a perpetual osteopathic practice as both his wife and his daughter are both osteopaths. So that must make for interesting dinner conversation there, Wael.
Yes, we're always having to decide what we're going to have for dinner. There's 3 different osteopaths, so 3 different opinions.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, mate, given your background, your experience, and how long you've been around, there's so much we can talk about. But I made the introduction that I made basically to give people context about a lot of the questions we're going to go through today. There's probably 3 or 4 podcasts that me and you can go through, but today's podcast I'd like to really discuss. I'd like to discuss questions surrounding education, regulation, and I guess representation. Your time at RMIT would have given you great perspective to discuss the evolution of osteopathic education, and also your current CPD courses allows you to meet a lot of new graduates, osteopaths, physiotherapists, chiropractors. So obviously you see the contrast between the different types of practitioners that are graduating over the years. You've worked as an osteopath through the expansion time of osteopathy in the 80s and 90s. So I'd like to get your views on the changing face of the actual osteopath. How has an osteopath changed over that time? And how has the market changed over that time as well? That'd be interesting. You were involved as the AOA president, so I'd like to discuss the role of that body with you and get some insight as to the I guess, you know, what is the best way to utilize a representative body. Maybe we could also look at the current landscape of osteopathy and discuss that a little bit and see some of the challenges and opportunities ahead of us. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss, Wael? I know there's a lot to cover there. Is there anything that you'd like to go through?
I think that covers a lot of things, and I think we just see how our conversation goes.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Okay, so before we get into specific questions around the topics that we want to discuss tonight, I want to ask you first, just to give people context, and there'll be listeners that haven't come across you. You've been you're heavily involved in the landscape in Victoria, but we might have listeners from, you know, that are out from Sydney, Lisbon, even around the world. I've got a lot of listeners over from the UK as well. And tell us, to you, Wael, what is osteopathy to you? How do you define it, and what sets it apart from the other therapies?
Okay, well, look, that's the $100,000 question that, you know, if every time I had a person who asked me that question, I got a penny, I'd be a very rich man. I was asked that question when I finished my diploma, because it was a diploma back then in 1985 in London. And, you know, you get asked, what's an osteopath? And then the next favorite question, what's the difference between osteopath, physio, and a chiro? And I was shocked the other day when I was teaching in Sydney. We teach all over Australia in our dry needling courses. And Sydney, I was there and had a group of physios who just qualified just recently in January, February. And one of them asked me, I just want to really ask you this question, what's an osteopath? And to be honest, I was shocked. You know, this is when I arrived here in 1987, that's the sort of question I was asked then. And so this is not a member of the public. This is a health professional who is asking me that question. So something's not right there if we're having to explain what an osteopath is in 2024, and I arrived here in 1987. So what do we do about that? Well, there's a lot we can talk about with that. But what do I say? Okay, what's an osteopath? An osteopath is someone who uses their hands to help people with musculoskeletal problems. And so I start off with that one. And then they go, oh, yeah, but what's the difference between that and a physio and a chiropractor? Well, the chestnut of, well, we're more holistic. I don't like that. What I like to say is this, that when you're an osteopath, you look at the body as not as a whole, but something that when somebody comes in and complains of a particular symptom, the first thing that you do is you need to look using your eyes. We start treating you by looking at you, using our eyes and finding out how you're walking, how you're moving, how you're moving from the waiting room to my treatment room, from the treatment room to the bed. We're looking at treating you using soft tissue work, manipulation, exercises, all the sorts of things that other manual therapists do, but with the lens of an osteopath who looks at somebody's movements and their characters and their patterns, picking up all these things to help somebody who's complaining of musculoskeletal pain.
Okay, so just to kind of give our viewers a bit more of an insight, most of the viewers would be either osteopaths or chiropractors or physiotherapists. To kind of delve deeper a bit into it, so in terms of osteopathy, like how would you define it in terms of principles? You know, philosophically, is it a difference in? Is it the tools that makes us different? You know, do we manipulate differently, or is it the fact that we just think differently?
I think that we're using the same tools. If we look at what physios do and chiropractors do, they do the similar manipulation, similar soft tissue work, massage therapists, all the same type of stuff. But it's the thinking and it's the training, the way we connect to certain things. So, you know, a classic would be if that person was asking me, you know, what's the difference between osteopath and physio, and then we got into a bit deeper, what I would start off with, well, let's say you came in with an elbow problem, elbow pain, lateral elbow pain. So the physio might look at that and start treating you the extensors of the wrist and fingers, and maybe do some needling, maybe do some stretching and give you some exercises. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at how you're moving your whole arm, your shoulder, your back. How did you cause this problem in the first place? How did it happen? What were you doing? Maybe there's a problem on the contralateral sacroiliac joint that then caused a problem with your ribs in the costovertebral joints that then caused a problem with how your extensors are moving, and maybe the radiohumeral joint was also a problem. So I'm going to start looking much further afield than where you're complaining of pain. That's what an osteopath does. Now, what I do may be similar to other manual therapists, but the way I treat you will be much broader, much bigger, and much more universal, rather than just looking at where pain is or chasing pain.
So really, you're trying to identify a pattern of dysfunction.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I do. Yeah, generally, I think that if you've been around for a while, you'll notice people have patterns. You even notice how people describe pain. You know, on our courses, when I'm teaching, I like to share some of these things with the students. They're often young students or people who've just qualified. And I talk about, you know, how people describe pain. If somebody, for example, was to go using their whole hand with their fingers like that, and they're going towards their neck, it's going to be more of a muscular problem. If it's going to be just the thumb here and they're going to the same side, it's going to be around the mastoid process. If it's going to be with their back and they lean back and push their hand into their back, that's more likely to be more like a facet joint, say ectroiliac joint. You've already got to start with the clues, building up those clues. And so looking at people and watching for these patterns is essential to being an osteopath.
Okay, so given that now we understand the context behind your thought process, let's delve deeper into some of the topics we want to discuss tonight. And you've just said it yourself too, that when you're talking to especially new graduates, you talk to them about patterns, and you've seen education from 1987 until now. You taught at RMIT, and now you continue to teach through your CPD courses. You've even seen your own daughter recently graduate as an osteopath. What's happening? You've written a book about this, and what's changed? What's going on with education? Can you give us some insight as to what you think is happening? Are we progressing osteopathy? Are we doubling down on our philosophy? Are we taking away from it? Lay it out for us, Wael.
Okay. I think we're missing a huge opportunity right now. As I start in my book, says that there's never been a better time right now to be an osteopath. Why is that? Well, the current landscape is changing, and it's changing because over the last 5-7 years or so, the kings of the castle here in Australia, in terms of manual therapy, as far as the patients or the public see, that's the physios. Everyone knows what a physio is. They're on TV every week. They're on the AFL. They're running around with physio on their back and so on. They're the kings of the castle. Everyone knows that. Now, we come in. There's the chiropractors and there's us. Let's just look at those three for now. What physios are doing right now is creating a massive vacuum for anyone to go to. And why is that happening? Because they have gone down the evidence-based route, the path. And what's happening is when they're coming out of university, they're being trained mainly to work in hospitals. They're not being trained to work in private practice. That's why you see a lot of new startups now whose job is to train people to bridge the gap between their university qualifications and working in real private practice, which is a massive jump. It doesn't prepare you. Every weekend that I have taught, which is a lot of weekends this year, that's exactly the same lesson that I'm learning and the message I'm getting from physios who are coming out of university. It's not training them to be in private practice. So they're moving away from that, right? And then, so there's a big gap now. So the problem is that the public, they want hands-on therapy. They've gone with evidence-based. Not only now are they not being trained for private practice, but they're being told that hands-on stuff doesn't work. And that's the problem, because you've got people who are teaching you at those universities who are researchers. They're not clinicians. They've never been in private practice or have very low experience with that. So now we've got an issue because they're being told that manual therapy doesn't work. So now they've gone, well, what are we going to do? I know, we'll just do exercises, rehab exercises, because that's the only thing left. Problem with that is we've got a new player on the market. We've got EPs, never had those 5-7 years ago. They've come in, they're the experts. They're on an EPC program. You get them on an EPC program. You get GPs sending people for rehab to EPs, not to physios. So now what are the physios going to do? So they're stuck. They were right up the top here. Now there's a big hole in this road. Chiropractors, they've stuck to their guns a little bit. They have gone a bit evidence-based, but generally speaking, everyone knows what one of those does, and they've stuck to their guns. The problem now is osteopaths, they're doing the same thing. The training is doing exactly the same thing as the physios, because the universities have demanded, oh, look, we've got to do this evidence-based stuff. The physios are doing it. We can't get funding if we're not evidence-based. So now we're getting osteopaths who are basically looking at manual therapy. Well, look, I'm not sure this stuff works, We've got to do rehab it. Hang on a minute. If you follow that path, you know when that's going to end. And the only people left now are massage therapists. They're the only true people who are actually using their hands right now and getting really good at it, because that's the skill that they have. They don't have manipulation. They don't have rehab. They're just going in under the radar, and people are going to them. Myotherapists, they're another group that probably have stuck to their guns. So I see this massive shift right now. But the problem is, if we continue down this path of thinking that manual therapy doesn't work, that we only got to go with rehab, we're going to really shoot ourselves in the foot. What I really think we should be doing which is something that's really important to me and I'm very passionate about. And it really is actually backed by my experience as a therapist. Become really good at a few things. That's all we got to do. Just become really good at being an osteopath. Just those key things: manipulation, soft tissue work, articulation, the basics.
Yeah, get good at the basics.
Get good. Yeah, start with the basics. Is that different to learning golf? To learning how to play the piano? No, that is exactly the same for any skill. You don't go, oh, look, today, what we're going to do, lads, I know you've wanted to join up for the 10 lessons for learning the piano. We're just going to chuck in a bit of guitar today. And we're also going to see how we go with learning the flute and maybe the guitar, the drums, right? No, we learn the basics over and over again and become really good at those for the first 5 years, maybe for the first 10 years. And then you can go off and do your own thing. Really learn the patterns, learn your craft, get good at that. And then we will take that spot that's right in the middle, that's opening up. Got a big signpost there. Free space in this spot here right now, because it's never been a better time.
Well, you've highlighted a problem that's happening right now. You've been involved in the landscape over in Victoria. I think you've trained a lot of or maybe some of the people that are actually either teaching or in charge of education in current university setups over in Victoria. At the very least, they know who you are, and you've had a chance to have a chat to them or somewhat be an influence. Why are we dropping the ball? Why is this happening?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've pondered over why, but we have lost our way. That is for sure.
Osteopathy. Sorry to cut you off. Osteopathy doesn't have to be in conflict with evidence-based medicine. Yeah, the two aren't in conflict with each other. Actually, if we are true to ourselves, eventually evidence-based medicine should catch up to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we really believe that, why are we? What's happening? What's going on? Why are we kind of backtracking?
Yeah, I think that we've been listening too much to researchers, university administrators, and the powers that be at educational establishments, rather than staying true to form about how osteopathy grew in the UK, in the US, more so in the UK, really, because, of course, in the US, we've got a different setup. But let's just look at the UK, which is all I know about, and look at my training. And I could say that, without doubt, that was the best training available for anyone who wants to be an osteopath. It was unbelievable. We had, and I say, well, if we can stick to that model, if we had that here, then we're back on the right path, because I know that my colleagues who've been with me all these years, successful practices, sticking to the basics, treating patients.
Have you been in contact with people in the Victorian landscape that are in charge or are involved in education? Are you in contact with them? Not regularly, but do you have contact with them? Do you sit and talk? What's when you have these conversations, does this particular conversation come up, and what's the feedback?
No, to be honest, I haven't done that. And you could say, well, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and go and talk to people? The point is that I feel that people like myself, and it's not just myself, there's a lot of other people that are more experienced than myself and started osteopathy here, that we should be talking to. And I think that what I feel is that if there was a need or a desire, then I'd like someone to be picking up the phone and saying, hey, we've got a real problem. But I don't think actually the people that are running the courses think there is a problem. That is the problem, because no one's going to pick up the phone and say, hey, Wayne, we're really struggling with numbers this year. What are we going to do about it? No one's doing that. So I would feel that I was pretty much irrelevant, to be honest, at this point, because I'm an old fuddy-duddy who's 61 next month, and what would I know? So I don't see anyone thinking or coming to me thinking that I've got anything to offer at this point. I'm merely talking to you on this podcast about how I feel. Now, I don't think that's shared by the powers that be.
So one solution that I've discussed with people would be a internship program where a lot of other professions have gone down that path. You know, if you're an architect, if you're an accountant, if you're a, you know, other professionals, they tend to do the university training that gets them to a point where they're safe. You know, they're not going to, accountants aren't going to make someone bankrupt. You know, architects aren't going to build houses. They're going to design houses. They're going to fall over. Engineers aren't going to qualify, you know, slabs of concrete that are going to crack everywhere, and then they go off and do a 1-year internship with somebody before they actually get registered. And so do you think that's a viable model in terms of, let's cut the course down to maybe 4 years and then give them a year under their belt before they actually apply for registration, with somebody like yourself, somebody like myself, somebody who's attained at least a certain level of maybe a diploma in education or something that they can go and do their internship, and then they could actually get an idea of what osteopathy is and how to apply it and how to think, rather than just, you know, have it being thought of as some kind of ancient relic or some religion that doesn't exist anymore. Is that something you've thought about? Is that a viable solution in your opinion?
I've not just thought about it, I've created it. So when I had my practice in Beaumaris Sports and Spinal Group, which is the one I sold in 2013, I started the mentorship program for students who, anywhere for RMIT or VUT, and invited people to apply. And I had 2 great candidates that joined me. And I started the program then because I could see that that was the only way forward to retain people and teach people and see how passionate I was about treating patients as an osteopath. And I really do think that we need to understand that when you are an osteopath, a certain level of pride. I do feel that. I really feel that if someone was to ask me, and you know, what do you do? There's an element of pride here that I am different. I'm not a physio, I'm not a chiropractor, I'm an osteopath. And there's a certain element of, oh, right, okay, even if they don't know what that is, I have that passion about it, and we all need to do that. So what happened with the mentorship program is this. So this was the crude form that I created first in the clinic. So what happened was I set up the day. Let's say I have 2 rooms, right? And I've got patients every half an hour. I'd walk in with patient A in room 1. I'd start treating that patient. And at the same time, my new graduate who's just finished, they're watching. I'm introducing the new graduate, telling them what we're doing, why we're doing it. They'd take over in that after 15 minutes. I go to the second room and do exactly the same thing and keep swapping one to the other like that all morning until every day that picks up, the patients become comfortable. I'm walking away, they build up their list. They have 2 full lists within 3 months. That's how that worked. But in my book, I say exactly the same thing as you just said, that what we need is a better form of that, so that when you start your course, it's not 5 years full of stuff that you're never going to use. It's real stuff that you're going to need in private practice, because luckily we're not going to be working in hospitals. There's no sort of, oh, well, you can go over here or there. You're going to be working in private practice mostly. So therefore, what should happen is this: as some of your fees, your tuition fees that then become your X bill, should be going towards the people who are training you. Just like if you're a plumber, a builder, a carpenter, an accountant, whoever, you come into my practice on day release from your university, you do exactly what I just said a minute ago, but I'm getting rewarded for that, and you then I have got you for, say, 2 years after you finish, so that I get something back out of your training, and then I teach you how to go from apprentice to an osteopath. That is no different to the Renaissance period, when people were painters and they have a masterpiece, because that's the final piece of product. That's the work that you had. That's why it's called a masterpiece, because it's your final piece of work. You give it to the master to say, yeah, you're ready to go. You're a good painter or whatever you are. Now, it's the same thing with osteopathy. Why don't we do that? Bring in some, I'd rather have less people that wanted to really be an osteopath than taking people in just because they got the marks or they couldn't think of anything else to do. Bring them in. I'll show them what, and this is not just me, there's a lot of experienced therapists out there that could help in this manner, to take them under their wing, teach them what private practice is all about, teach them how to communicate, how to treat, master their craft, and retain this profession so they love what they do and they do it for a long time. I always say that I'm going to really drop dead in this room right now because I'm not going to stop being an osteopath. I'll be an osteopath till I stop breathing, because I just love what I do. I mean, tomorrow I've got a full day as my working day seeing patients. The other time I run CPD health courses. And most of those people I've seen for them 25 years. And that's what I love about it. It's like, oh, wow, we're just having a chat and I'm treating you back. And that's what it's like. Yeah.
I asked you earlier if you would talk to anyone that's involved in education in Melbourne, and I also asked you if you think they're aware, and you mentioned they weren't aware that that this kind of backward slide of losing the, I guess, the philosophy and the principles of osteopathy. There's a bit of a backward slide there. What challenges do you think they're facing, though? Like, if you do have some kind of people at the university level who are really committed to osteopathy and they're in that arena, you've worked there. What challenges are they facing to kind of try to get osteopathy at least a little bit more, looked after in terms of trying to retain its essence? Hello, everyone. I'd like to take a quick moment to thank everyone for watching and listening to the podcast. If you have received value from this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel on whichever platform that you are listening on. If any of the conversations have resonated with you and you feel that I can help elevate your practice, you can find me at successinpractice.net. That is, the Success in Practice program can be found at successinpractice.net. The Success in Practice program is the signature program that takes a practitioner who may be struggling with retaining patients. They may not be certain about building effective treatment strategies, and they may feel somewhat anxious and doubtful about what they are going to do with a patient. And they are not really accelerating in the real world of private practice. It takes this practitioner and it turns their careers right around to the point where the patients have an effective diagnosis and a real treatment plan that they can take home. Patients are happy to book in multiple sessions with you and they are confident about your abilities. And more importantly, you now have direction and are confident about your own abilities. The program streamlines how you operate as a practitioner. Guys, you should have been taught this at university, but you weren't. You may have been practicing for the last few years thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be a more effective way of engaging with patients and getting them results. Well, there is. And this is what the program delivers. Go to successinpractice.net and check out the options available to you. See where I can help you easily grow your patient list and finally earn the rewarding income that you deserve. For all the information on how you can reach me personally, check out the show notes. Also in the show notes, you'll find a link to the chat transcripts from these podcasts. These are valuable and a wealth of information. I really hope that you're enjoying the podcast. Guys, leave a comment if there's any questions on this episode. And please, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Now, back to the show.
Look, that's a great question, and I think that money is at the root of this, that they have financial concerns. They look for courses that will bring them in more money. Medicine is a great attraction, physio is a great attraction, osteopathy not so much. I don't know the figures, but from what I read and what I know about osteopathy in the UK, for example, let's take that for example. UCO, University College of Osteopathy, that's the equivalent of the BSO. That's what's become, from the BSO, it's become the UCO now. And we teach our courses there, our dry needling courses. That had 20 people last year apply to be an osteopath. That is unsustainable. So what are they going to do? They're going to join forces with the chiropractors in Bournemouth to join up and financially rescue each other, pretty much. Now, that's a problem. So what does that mean? That means we've got to start right back at the roots, not at the university level. It's got to be like, well, with the people that we do have, we've got to really look after these people, really teach them what osteopathy is about. So then other people go, I really want to do that. You know, that's fantastic. I want to do this. Look at the results you get. Well, you're different to a physio, a chiropractor. No disrespect to the other professions. You're just different. But we've got to start at the roots. It's like a small plant. We've got to look after it. Otherwise, the problem will continue, that you'll get less and less people. No one will want to be an osteopath in the first place. And then the problem's over because there won't be anyone at universities.
So given what you've just said, you've come across a lot of recent graduates in your CPD courses, and you've mentioned that you don't feel like they're adequately prepared for private practice. You've outlined some solutions in your book, and you've just discussed some solutions now in terms of, you know, having that internship type program where new graduates would go in with you, and you know, you do a bit of work, you show them what to do, and then move on to the next patient. In terms of an underlying shift in the mentality of a new graduate, what do you think needs to change so that osteopathy isn't lost in the large field of allied health? Like, what do new graduates have to do at least to not to get lost? You know, for me, it looks like ARPA is just trying to make us all look the same. I think they're just trying to make everyone look the same, make everyone kind of be the same kind of player. What advice would you give, Wael, to a new graduate who's saying, look, I've just graduated, I have some tools, but I don't really know how to put things together. What can I do to become an osteopath? Because they're not osteopaths. They've graduated, but it doesn't look like they're osteopath. I mean, if you look at them practicing, you can't recognize them. And so they're coming to you, Wael, they're asking for advice, saying, listen, I want to be a good osteopath. What do I need to do?
Okay. Well, first thing I would say is, you see the 99 other people in your year, they're going over there. You go this way. Every time you see anyone go one way, you go the other. You need to be unique. You need to forge your own path. And how are you going to do that? Well, the first thing is you've got to master the basics, as I said before. But you've got to learn off somebody else, a mentor. Find somebody who you want to be like. Go and visit osteopaths. Don't finish university and go, right, I'm going to go to the first job that I find in my area that doesn't have to work on Saturday mornings and whatever else, and it's got good pay, and they're giving me 80%. Wow, fantastic. You're going to get bored with that. Hang on. Get paid nothing and go and do a 6-month sabbatical. Go overseas. I'll give you a list of people, for example, that you need to go and watch. They'd love to see you. People that were mentors of mine, in fact, they're still working, or people that are of my generation, or people who are maybe 10 years ago as well, here in Australia and overseas. Go and watch them. Get that passion. Oh, I want to know how to do that. That's what I want to do. Then we do that. Okay. Then we go, okay, how do I do that? How do I get more of this? Go and work for nothing. Go and watch them every Wednesday afternoon while you pick up some money from another job, so that you can then become much better at what you do with that passion, that drive, and you've got someone to ask questions of, and you're building your experience, but having a goal. But don't try to do everything all at once. Only pick one thing. If you decide, I'm going to be a soft tissue manipulator, then don't try cranial as well, MET, functional, BLT, and all those things all at once. It's never going to work. It never has worked in the history of anything that you learn. If you are thinking that you're going to be good at all of those things, it's not going to happen. Start getting good at one thing. Now, we say this on our dry needling courses, for example. We say to them, get 3 muscles that you're already good at needling already, only practice them in the first month. Then add another 3, and then add another 3. No different with osteopathy. If you want to be a neck person, find out that I want to be a guy who treats neck pain. Yeah, you'll treat the other stuff, but you just love treating necks. Become really good at treating necks, backs, whatever it is, elbows, I don't really care. But become a master of one thing rather than a jack of all trades, because that means that you'll never be good at anything. You'll just be a mediocre sort of guy. I want people to walk out of their profession eventually, and people will talk about you saying, never go anywhere else but that guy or that girl, that osteopath. I want that. And how are we going to do that? Because you're going to become good at just one thing. That is all. That's all you got to do.
At least be good at one thing before you move on to the next thing, right?
Absolutely,
At
yeah.
the very least.
Master your craft.
Yeah, yeah. Look, great advice there, and I think you kind of took it to a level. I'm sure if you had a graduate that came and saw you and showed some of that passion that you do, I mean, even a fifth of the passion that you just described, you'd hire them on the spot. They don't have to make. Sure. They don't have to make no money. Like that's just doing something that no one's done before is actually being passionate. It's really weird that now that having that kind of passion is something that's that nobody else does. It's a strange time that we're living in. Look, let's discuss some of your dry needling experience for a little bit. When you meet practitioners who want to learn how to dry needle, what are the traits that set apart those who pick it up really quickly versus those who take a little bit more time?
No, that's a really good question, because what I say is this: to be a good dry needling therapist, the first thing that you need to have has nothing to do with putting a needle in. As I say this every time. I say, we could get the security guy out there to put that needle in. The rest of it, they can't. What is it that's really important? Palpation skills. If you can't feel a trigger point, how are you going to put a needle in it? If you can't feel the difference between sartorius and adductor longus, if you can't feel where the posterior border of vastus medialis is, you don't know where the adductor canal is. That's a caution point. So if you can't differentiate brachioradialis from extensor carpi radialis, well, there's a problem. So this is the key. We need to be able to have people who are safe dry needling therapists, not because of the dry needling itself. That needs to happen before. You've already got fantastic palpation skills. And do you know who've got the best palpation skills who come on our courses? Remedial massage therapists.
Right.
That's it. Why? Because that's all they do. That's all they do, right? They don't do anything else. Second to those would be the osteopaths, to be honest. But there's a big gap. And I'm worried that because they're learning so many different things, this is going to go. When I was at the BSO, we had to see 1,000 patients before we qualified, right? That's a lot of patients, right? And we were taught technique by Laurie Hartman. Laurie Hartman was one of our tutors, right? So we were very, very lucky. And so we came out being pretty, ready to go. We hit the ground running. We did know what we were doing. We just didn't have any experience, but we were ready to go. I want to see that here. I really do. If somebody gave me the opportunity and said, look, we're really struggling with this course, and we've got low retention. People leave after 2 years when they've done the 3 years after they're doing their degree and they don't want to do the masters. What's the problem? Give me them on day one. I'll talk to them like I'm talking to you now. Tell them how passionate I am to be an osteopath, how proud I am, and what it's done for me. I've got 3 kids, wife, family. We live in a lovely place, and I've got so many experiences with my patients. They've given me everything. That has been my life. Without those patients, I'll be. That's all I talk. On a day that I treat, Wednesday night. Oh yeah, I saw so and so. They told me this. I go through all my patients. It's a beautiful, relationship of what other job can you do that in? It's such a rewarding profession. And that's what I'd be talking to the young kids who start osteopathy and go, okay, you're very lucky. We'll take you under my wing. And I'll show you how to get the most return on your investment. That's what I would want to see.
Part of it as well, I think, just listening to you, Wael, a lot of the confidence that young practitioners get, and it was the same when I was a graduate, and it was probably the same when you were a graduate, is that we need to get results, and you were shown how to get results by the people that taught you, because they were getting results in their clinics. And so when you see them getting results, and then you go and get some results, and then you kind of hit the ground running. The problem now is that we're getting graduates that don't know how to get results. They actually don't know that it works. It's beautiful. It works. It's amazing. Like, it's just amazing how osteopathy works so easily when it's applied properly. And they just don't get to see that, you know, because a lot of it is convoluted. A lot of it, you know, you look at I see some of the graduates, they're seeing a patient return to them in, say, 3 months that's coming in for a return problem, or it could be a new injury, or even a related problem to an existing injury, and they're taking another case history that goes for half an hour or 40 minutes. It's unbelievable. You know, it's like a 50-page essay, and I'm like, well, you know, what are you doing? You've already taken a case history. You know, just pick out the pattern that you see. Trust your instinct. You're an osteopath. You've been taught this. You should have been taught this. Trust your instinct and do something, and then see if it works. And either you'll learn that it didn't work, or it'll work and you'll get some confidence out of it. And so I think the big one there is that, mate, a lot of your passion comes across because you've been getting results for such a long time. And we're probably not seeing that passion in your graduates because they're not getting
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that the problem that I see is that not just with osteopathy, but with physios and osteopaths and chiropractors to a degree, is that you go to university now to learn what not to do rather than what to do. It's all about protecting your backside. Okay, we're going to do this test, that test, that test, that test, tick these boxes. And then you come out going, yeah, I've done all this, I've got all this list and taken the history, but I don't know what's wrong with them because it hasn't been an actual flow based on logic. Oh, well, if they don't have that, then I should go over here. No, it's just tick, tick, tick.
Well,
tick.
I've had a conversation with an educator over at one of the universities in Victoria, and they made it very clear that their defined job from the university is to make sure the graduates are safe. They don't necessarily need to be competent. And so that makes me a bit sad, to be honest with you, because, you know, it's
very sad.
It's I feel bad for the graduates because they're graduating, and it's just a matter of luck if they're competent or not. You know,
it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault at all. No, it's not their fault at all.
Not at all. They come out, and they're actually, the lack of confidence is why you then go and do this case history for 40 minutes, and then you wonder, what am I going to do for the rest of the 5 minutes? I don't know what to do now. That's a problem.
Well, let's shift a little to your time with the AOA, now Osteopathy Australia. You were president from 1990 to 1992. What were some of the challenges you faced at that time?
Well, my role at the time was to amalgamate what was the Australian Osteopathic Association, which was based in Victoria. I was number 47 in that list of osteopaths. There was very few osteopaths here, but some of those osteopaths that were before me were real and are giants of our profession. Phil Tehan, Alan Woodley, Kevin Sturgis, Janine Sturgis, Simon Clement, John Pitcher, Jerry Benish, all these names, they started osteopathy. It wouldn't be here, this profession, if it hadn't been for those people. So we had the Victorian group here, and then we had another association in New South Wales, which is the United Osteopathic Physicians Guild, or UOPG. And that was made up of locally qualified osteopaths. And the Victorian one was made up of UK-based osteopaths. So the talk at the time was, hang on, we need to join resources here so that we can become one voice and one movement. And that's what I did. So at the end of my tenure, we had the Australian Osteopathic Association, which joined up them and us, the New South Wales people and the Victorians. So that's what then grew from AOA to now what we see Osteopathy Australia.
So that must have been a bit of a challenge to get get those two kind of factions to come together. But I'm sure, given my conversations with some people here in New South Wales, I think everybody had osteopathy's best interest at heart at that time.
Oh yeah, that was right.
Given though they had different opinions, which is fair enough, but I think that's the genesis of great representation. What were some of you've mentioned that was a pretty good achievement And is that something that you're really most proud of in terms of representation of that body, the Australian Osteopathic Association? Was that really your biggest achievement, or was that the biggest achievement of that time in terms of uniting the profession?
I think that's right. It was one of those things. It wasn't me at all. I was the president as such, but I had a lot of support and help from the people I mentioned before, who'd been here much longer than I had at the time. And I think that it was important to have a unified body. And yes, there were, nobody likes change. So there was some problems or challenges with doing that. There's financial challenges, who had money, who didn't have money, where would it be based, and so on. But really, for the good, as you said, everyone wanted the good of the profession. Because back in those days, I mean, I think if you're talking about achievements, well, it's not really an achievement, but my greatest pride was to be involved here on the first course in the world that was government funded for osteopaths, and that was at it was Philip Institute at the time, now RMIT University. So I actually got a job from the UK to work as a clinician in that course. And the people that you see running the courses now and are very instrumental in osteopathy, like Gary Fryer, he runs VU. He was in that third year at the time, and I was teaching the third years, second years, first years at that time. They hadn't actually qualified yet. So people like Gary, Margaret Matthews, Glenn Bales, Bruce Frost, a lot of those people, Mick Kelly, all of those people were in that third year. So I went from third year, fourth year to fifth year, and then I left after that point. It was lovely. It was just a really special time.
Well, just to take that point that you made, because that's quite interesting. So you said, you mentioned that Gary Fry, who's head of Victoria University at the moment, he's an osteopath. He's been exposed to osteopathy. You've exposed him to osteopathy, I'm sure, as a lot of the other lecturers at the time would have too. And he's in charge of Victoria University. Does that kind of, is that something that it doesn't make sense to me? I mean, that what we're seeing now, we're kind of losing that essence a little bit, and we should have somebody who's been highly exposed as an osteopath in charge of that program. I don't know Gary. I haven't had a chat to Gary. I'm not making any kind of accusation, but I just wonder what the challenges are. There must be some barriers, some challenges for these educators that they can't push us. I don't think that it's a lack of wanting to, but I'll put the call out now. If Gary wants to join me on the podcast and have a chat, happy to chat to him. Happy to chat to anybody who's an educator. I just want to get some answers out there, because I'm seeing graduates, and it's just I feel terrible for the position that they're in. So I wanted to ask you, a lot of the people that went through under your time, they are now heavily involved in the scene in Victoria. Is there anything that you can discuss in terms of why you think the essence is being lost?
Yeah, look, I don't know the answer to that, but what I can say is this: that Gary is a lovely guy. Known him for many years, and I'd love to talk to Gary about this. But I think it's not a personal thing. It's not like Gary or Margaret or Mick or whatever. It's a system that Gary has to work within, and that's the problem. So we've got a system that then says to the profession and the course coordinators and the people who lead that course, this is what we want. And that doesn't always align with what the profession needs. And what I would like to see, a closer link between the courses and what the profession actually needs. What if I was a therapist now running a clinic, and I needed new grads every year or two or whatever it was, then I would be wanting to tell Gary and people who ran other courses, this is what we want. We want people who are passionate about what they want to do. They want to learn. They have got the basic skills. They're good at, I can leave them with patients and know that they're going to be good enough to do the basics with that patient. I tell you what, one of the biggest problems or concerns is they don't see enough patients in the universities. And that is a problem. If you don't get exposure to real people That's the problem. Real people, not just people who are paying $7 for a treatment. No, people who actually demand a result, not, look, doesn't matter if I get better or not because I'm only paying $7. I don't know how much it is. I'm just saying that you want real people. You want exposure to those people. What I say in my book, and I say to a lot of new grads, is this, that you are in sales. Like it or not, you are in sales. If you can't sell your skills and services to every new patient, you're not going to have a practice. They're not coming back. That's the problem. We don't see ourselves, it's not taught early enough that we are actually in sales. That is what we are. It's a service industry.
Yeah.
And what we need to know or teach young people is that people are paying you for a result. Now, they're not coming here to lie on the table and you have a go and then we say to them, look, see how you go at the end of that. No, we don't see how you go.
I think there's a misconception that, you know, new graduates have, that they feel they should be paid for the last 5 years of education that they've had to endure. Patients don't really care, you know, they don't really care how many years of education you've had. They just care that you get them the result. So you get paid, you get paid for the results that you, that's what makes you deserve the income, is the fact that you can get a result. If you've got a PhD and a master's and you can't get results, you know, it's like, it's just paper that's sitting on the wall.
That's right. Nobody really cares what your certificate says up on that board.
No, they don't care about the outcome.
And they don't care how you get there either. If you want to slap fish over my head and you get me better, I'll come back next week. But the point is that you've got to do those results. Nobody's coming back unless you do.
Look, let me get back to the topic of the AOA and your time there. Given your experience in that position, what do you feel is the main role of a representative body, especially when it comes to breaking barriers and really expanding the profile of osteopathy in the market? You were around in practice and in education in the 80s and the 90s, and from what I understand, that was a real expansion time for osteopathy. We had courses in Victoria. We had a course. We had the college that was bringing out students in New South Wales, and then we had a course over at University of Western Sydney that started in 1998. And so that was a real expansion time, you know, the 90s and early 2000s, especially for osteopathy. And I found that any time that real proper progress has been made, it's been driven by osteopaths. They've really been the ones that have driven it. And you know, we have a representative body. What do you feel is the main role of that body, given that breaking barriers and expanding the profile of osteopathy is what we're after?
Yeah, I think the role of Osteo Australia is exactly what we wanted before, what I was talking about before, which is we've got the universities on one side and we've got the profession on the other. The role of Osteo Australia is to bring the two together, meet the needs of each other. So Osteopathy Australia, I'd love to see them reach out to people who have been in practice for a long time, people who've been in practice for, say, 10, 15 years plus, and go, what are you after? What do you want? Okay, let's talk. Let's bring this together with people like Gary, people RMIT, and people who are running osteo courses as well, anywhere, not just here, but everywhere. And we talk about what do you need? What are your demands? Just like, you know, if we've got industry and we've got the universities, what does the university need to produce? What type of engineers do we need? What do they need to be good at? It's no different. We need to bring the two together. What are your demands? What do you want to see this profession? Because we know what we need, because we're at the coalface. Every day we're talking to patients. They're the customer. They're the end user. Universities don't know this. And I'm not asking them to know this either, but I am saying that they've got a role to play, but we are the recipients of their product. Their product is the student. Now, if that isn't what we want, then something's going to break along the way. So we need the association to bring the two together, to go align us so that, oh yeah, this is what we need, Gary. We need people that can do this as a basic. We need them to have these qualifications, these abilities, these skills, need to be good at this. These are the sort of things we need to be teaching. And how can we help you provide those skills if you haven't got people who can do that at this point? Bring in mentors, bring in schemes like we've been talking about. You know, in a lot of ways, when I did my course, the BSO, that wasn't a government funded course. That was a private college. But that is unbelievable course compared to the situation we have now, where you're forced into doing certain subjects and courses in a certain way just to become an osteopath. And then you get a HECS bill at the end and bang, wow, okay, what have I got for it? I'm not busy.
Maybe there's an argument there to go back to private colleges and then maybe have some way of maybe formalizing education at the end of the private college diploma. Right. So, okay. Well, given that you just said about the role of Osteopathy Australia is to bring, you know, I guess the osteopaths and what they need, and then align that with the universities and what they are producing. And I think that's an important point to understand, and it really requires that, like you said, Osteopathy Australia reaches out to people who are heavily involved. And I've said this before, I think businesses, you know, osteopathic businesses and osteopathic business owners need to drive that change, because they're the ones that are suffering. You know, pain is a really great educator. And when businesses and osteopaths who run clinics start to suffer because they have graduates that they're just pulling their hair out trying to get them good and trying to provide patients for them, it's a very painful process. And so, you know, pain will obviously lead the osteopathic business person to make the right judgment call, and hopefully the association listens. Mate, moving on.
If you look back, when I finished my course, there were no bridging courses to learn how to work in private practice. There were nothing like that. Now they're everywhere, and that's because there's a problem. We got to bridge the gap. So what do we need to do?
My concern is that there's maybe, like, you know, I'm assuming there's probably about 100 to 200 new graduates, maybe probably more, between Lismore, between Southern SCU, VU, and RMIT. You should have at least probably 100 to 200, probably close to 150 new graduates a year. And, you know, it might be more enticing for an association in terms of membership fees to attract younger practitioners than to come to people like yourself or myself who have been around for over 20 years, 30 years, and kind of say, hey, what is it that you're after? You know, I know a few, I guess, later generation osteopaths who are a little bit disenchanted and no longer are members of the association. I have a different perspective. I think we should always be involved, but it's something that needs to be, I think, reconciled and made better.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's right. We can't work alone. This has to be together. Just like when the AOA joined the UOPG. People are trying their best. No one's blaming anybody here, but I do think there's a problem, and we need to address it together, not alone, and not by pointing out anybody or anything. It is a universal problem. It's much bigger than one person or one course or whatever.
Well, I know that they're currently doing some town hall meetings across the country, and that's good. I just hope we get proper answers. You know, I hope we get proper feedback and proper answers, and I guess some of the real concerns are addressed. We have a concern here in New South Wales about a course. We need a course in Sydney. It's Australia's largest market in terms of population, and without a course in Sydney, it's really hard to see the profession growing and expanding. I think the Victorian market's seen such great improvements, you know, leaps and bounds of progress. You know, we're seeing osteopaths now amongst AFL teams and sports teams over in Victoria. We're seeing osteopaths moving into aged care facilities. I don't see the hospital system as too far off maybe in Victoria. You know, it's not, and when you have that kind of volume coming out, it wouldn't be a thing to say is unachievable. And that's what happens when you have volume. You know, volume really creates improvement. So we'd like to see that here in Sydney, and I hope that gets addressed really soon. Look, I guess the next question then is, let's look to the future. How do you see the future of osteopathy in Australia? Do you feel that we're headed in the right direction? Do you think that there needs to be a change of course? Do we have the right people? Do we have, are we kind of off track? Are we on track? Give us your insights, Wael. Hello, everyone. Just a quick break to give you some information on where to best find me. The first place is the private Facebook group called the Successful Practitioner Pathway. I've set up this private group as a place where practitioners can go and get tips and advice on how to best accelerate their practice and improve their clinical practice skills. The second place to find me is at successinpractice.net. That is where the Success in Practice signature program is housed. You can find more information about me and how I can best help you achieve success in your practice. So the two best places, the private Facebook group, the Successful Practitioner Pathway, and successinpractice.net. I will link to both those places in the show notes. So for more information, please see the show notes. Now, enjoy, and back to the show.
Well, as I said before, I don't think we're on course. I think I am worried about our profession, really worried. And I think that we need to change course by doing more of these things. We need to involve the association in putting the universities together with people that have been in practice at the sharp end for a long time. And a lot of these people are too busy to turn up to town hall meetings. You know, if you're very busy, well, then you're not going to be, if you're successful, you've got patients coming at you, you haven't got time to go to the town hall meeting.
That's right? A very valid point. I don't want to be the person to I'm not saying that people that rock up to the town halls aren't busy practitioners or they're not competent practitioners, but you're right. Like, I've got 3 young children. I get home from work. I'm working from usually 7 a.m. till about 6, 7 p.m. And it's not the last thing I want to do. I do really want to go to a town hall, but I've got to take my kids to a soccer game. There's a whole bunch of things. And you're right. People who are successful and busy in practice and doing things on a busy schedule will find it hard to go to the town hall meetings. Now, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be represented. And I guess maybe doing something more virtual online would work. But, you're right. That's a valid point. I want to let you keep going, though, with the answer, but I thought that was just a valid point.
No, I think that's important. I think that I'm not talking about myself here, but I think that my peers, the people I mentioned before, it would be great if the AOA or representatives of the AOA were to reach out to those people, just like you're talking to me now. Just actually take the time, because my generation, the majority of osteopaths now are much younger than I am. Right, I'm reaching the end of my career or my use-by date, pretty much. But the younger osteopaths, they are going to possibly go to town hall meetings. They're going to be involved in discussions with AOA. They're going to be on the AOA board, and they're going to be talking to Anthony or whoever. But people like me, I think they need to be reached out to, because these people have started osteopathy here in this country. And they deserve that respect. I'm not talking about myself at all here. I'm talking about the people that started osteopathy at the time that I arrived and before I arrived. And to reach out to them and go, look, ask them the questions that you're asking me. And where do we go from here? What are the challenges? How do you see this? So that we can help each other use the experience. Just like anything that you've ever seen, not just osteopathy, anything that in industry, in economics, in politics, religion, whatever. We always you talk to the older people, the elders, the mentors, and then see what they're saying. Well, we've seen this before. Oh, this is where we were. This worked for us. Oh, no, that didn't work. It saved yourself a lot of time. Why wouldn't we do that? I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just simple communication. That's all. Let's reach out to those people. What do you think about this? And then I think that we feel more included, less irrelevant, because as you get older, I'm not osteopathy here at all, just generally speaking, one tends to have a viewpoint which you then think, is really anyone going to listen to me anymore? I'm a bit irrelevant, a bit of an old fuddy-duddy, no one wants to listen to me. But I really still I'd love to talk to people if they want to listen to me. If people want to listen to me, I'll tell them how I feel, like I have on this podcast, and share the passion I have for something that's given me an amazing career. And I don't think that there's enough of that in any profession, really. And I think osteopathy has that unique ability to, because it's so different, to give that young person, yeah, there's something in that. I really want to do that. And what is that? So how did you get to this point? And they'll take one thing from me, one thing from somebody else, and so on. And then you build up, just like I did. It's not different at all. Much like I did from the BSO. You know, Laurie Hartman, pick something from him. You pick something from somebody else. Steve Sandler, unbelievable therapist to this day. And these people are masters of our profession. We should be reaching out to. Why not reach out to those people in the UK, where our profession is very similar to that profession? What we're trying to achieve here is very similar to that in the UK in terms of very successful. A lot of osteopaths there, a lot of very mature and experienced osteopaths. Let's talk to them. So I think we need to begin to talk to the elders within the profession about the challenges that the universities face. What are the restraints? Gary, tell us what pressure you're under. You were an amazing student. You loved osteopathy. You were passionate about it. Here you are helping us grow the profession. Amazing. But what is your challenge? Why? Where do you see us going from here?
Yeah. And how can we help you as a profession?
How can we help you?
Yeah.
Help each other. Yeah. And then talk to Anthony. How can we help you? What are your challenges? Talking to government bodies, talking to health funds, and all the great things they've done, as you said, and what possible without an association, an university, and us as the professionals on the ground. Well, let's talk together, but bring in those more experienced therapists that can help us to understand the challenges and where to go from here.
Yeah, and it's not a difficult thing to do, because I'll give you a bit of background on my research. I mean, researching for this podcast, you kind of look around and just to use you as an example, your name just kept popping up. You know, I'd speak to certain people, talk to Wayne, and so that you when someone's name keeps popping up, you go, well, I should talk to that person, and so it's not like they're not aware of it. I think they know where you are. I think they know where where other very experienced practitioners over here in Sydney are, and hopefully they reach out and can get some input. I think like you said earlier about graduates, we want quality over quantity, and we have quality here in terms of experienced practitioners. And I think one experienced practitioner would probably, shoot a straighter arrow than maybe 10 people who have just been recently graduated in the last couple of years. And so,
and we'd retain them all.
Yeah,
we'd retain these people.
And you need to reach out to those people. So, mate, great point. Thank you for that. Now, Wael, how can people reach you, mate? If someone wants to tell us a bit about you and the dry needling kind of association or organization that you run. How can people find you if they want to find you on your social media, websites, anywhere we can find you?
Yeah, so my main job is to teach dry needling. We have a business that we started in 2013. After I finished a master's degree in acupuncture, I became interested in dry needling. And we run the most courses in Australia for dry needling. We're the biggest education provider for dry needling. We are found on cpdhealthcourses.com, and we also run courses in the UK, which is cpdhealthcourses.co.uk. And we emphasize safety. That's our main focus of what we teach. And we do that through the online theory that you need to complete, which is all evidence-based, by the way, and also the practical courses that we teach as well. I love seeing people come to a Friday night, which we start the course at 4 o'clock on a Friday, 4 till 8, and then 8 till 6 on a Saturday. That's the intro course. And I love seeing people on a Friday not knowing which end of the needle to use, to walking out on a Saturday night, being able to be 100% safe with all the techniques they've learned, build on their confidence and build on their effectiveness, because we guarantee that you will be safe, but you're not going to be confident at every single technique that you've been taught. That takes time. Are you going to be effective? That takes time too. We're not going to kid you. Like any technique, it takes time to build your confidence and effectiveness, just like osteopathy. So that's where you can find me, info@cpdhealthcourses.com. And if people are listening to this and want to engage me and ask me questions like you have about osteopathy, I do mentor 2 or 3 people right now. One is actually studying osteopathy in Germany. And I have 3 monthly conversations with him about osteopathy, and I talk to him in the way that I've been talking to you. Hopefully inspire him into becoming someone who is able to help people, which is really another thing that I also say at our courses. I say, we're not teaching you dry needling because we want you to learn to be a dry needling therapist. We're teaching you dry needling so that you can learn this skill, so that you can help people, which is why we do what we do. That's what we do as manual therapists. That's what we do. We help people. I was reminded of that at my interview when I was an 18-year-old young man in London for my interview to go into osteopathy. And I met the principal of the school, and she asked me, well, so why do you want to be an osteopath? And then an 18-year-old boy, I had no idea what an osteopath was or why I wanted to do osteopathy at that time. I just knew that it was something I was recommended to osteopathy by my father, who was a doctor. And I knew that this is good. And somebody actually told him, in fact, that I would do something using my hands. That could be anything, of course, but this is pretty good. And she said to me, what do you want to be an osteopath for? I told her all these reasons. And then she said, what about helping people? Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, of course. Now I really understand what she meant, 40 years later. That is so important that we understand that we are serving the public. That's what we're doing. Helping them get back to doing what they love or need to do. Yeah. And that is such a reward for me.
It's a privilege, mate. It's a real privilege. Wael, I want to thank you for your time today. I'm sure there's a lot more we can discuss, and hopefully we get a chance to do another episode with you. Look, for our listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. It lets me reach more people. So if you feel like you've received any value, that's the kindest thing you can do for me, is to just like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Wael, thank you, and all the best today. I'm going to continue having a chat to you, but for our listeners now, thanks, Wael, and we will hopefully see you on another episode.
Thank you very much, Tony. Lovely to talk to you.